Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. You're watching my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, October 14th, 2024. Over on Patreon, I've begun a journey into Stephen King's Carrie, his very first book. I've never read any of Stephen King before, and I figure, what a glorious opportunity this could be, to read it and react to it with a small knit community, and just experience it all for the first time. It gives me motivation to read it, and it's been a great journey so far. So if that sounds like something you'd want to join me on, check out the link in the description. Case file number 1878, written by Not a Username 86. Everything's fine until a woman was frozen in time. Every morning, I have the same routine, more or less. This morning, my routine was no different. I ran up to my local gas station to buy an energy drink. It's something that I've done thousands of times. But this morning, I encountered something for the first time. A real-life, in real-time glitch. It has taken me hours to process what I saw, and even still, I have no idea how or why it happened. But here's what happened. I got to the store and parked my car, and I walked into the store like I do every day. I noticed there are 3 others in line, which is pretty normal for the time I usually go. I move past them and head towards the cooler that has the drink I want. I open the cooler and grab it, and move my way to stand in line to pay. Roughly 30-ish seconds from the time I walked into the door, the first guy pays for his black and mild and his lotto ticket and exits the store. Second person is a mom, and her school-aged child is in tow. They are getting apple juice and what I assume is a little snack for the child before school. They pay, everything is fine, and they head towards the exit. Normal. Everything is normal. But then, the third woman gets to the counter. She's a middle-aged woman, and she asks the clerk for a pack of menthol cigarettes. She lifts her hand to point at the pack she wants, and then suddenly, about 3/4 of the way through the movement, she stops. And not stops like she stopped moving her arm, but stops, as if she was frozen in time. I look around. The lady and her child are getting into their car. Cars are driving by on the main road. I look back at the lady. She's still not moving. Not even her clothing is moving. I look even harder. She doesn't even appear to be breathing. She's literally standing there, perfectly frozen in time, like someone hit the pause button. 10-ish seconds go by. The clerk says, "Ma'am?" No response from the woman. Again, the clerk asks, "Ma'am?" with even more concern in his voice. Again, no response. He looks to me in a way that said, "What the hell?" And I look back at him in a way that said, "No idea, dude." Another 10 seconds go by. She's still just standing there, motionless, in an awkward position. I start thinking, oh damn, is this lady having a bad drug reaction, or is she having a stroke, in my mind? I feel a little off and panicky about the situation. I then chime in, "Ma'am, are you okay?" She's still unresponsive and motionless. Then a few seconds later, after asking if she was okay, and this is what actually totally freaked me out to the max, the lady starts moving and speaking, but not in a normal manner, no. That could be explained, maybe. This lady literally started moving like someone had hit the fast forward button. Her arm completed the upwards movement, pointed at the smoke she wanted, and in an instant, as if several frames skipped, her arm was back down at her side, and then the position of her entire body changed, without moving. And then noise, opposed to words, that sounded very much like super speed up audio came out of her mouth. The look of shock on the clerk's face let me know that he heard and saw the same thing. But then, just like that, everything went back to normal. The clerk scanned the pack of smokes, she pulled out her credit card at normal speed and paid for her item, and exited the store, like nothing strange at all happened. After the lady left the store, the clerk looked at me and said, "I'm a regular face to him." Damn, dude. I need to stop taking drugs, that crap's crazy. To which I could only say, I feel you. Maybe I need to stop too. For the record, I was not under the influence of drugs. Needless to say, nothing about the event was normal. I cannot, for the life of me, figure out how something like that could happen except that it was a glitch. I mean, really. But maybe you had to be there to really understand. Regarding the possibility of a seizure, the way her body movements seemed to skip frames and be on fast forward seemed very unnatural. But maybe that's also something that happens with seizures? I got up 2 hours early to go to the store and ask the store clerk if they had a video of the events yesterday. He informed me that they should, but that he has no access to the room and laptop that contains the surveillance videos, and that only the store owner can access them. He subsequently informed me that the store owner will not be in until a bit later in the day. He said he will ask the owner to review the tape from yesterday. I also asked the clerk to describe to me what he saw, and he said, "Dude, that lady looked like someone hit the pause and then the server lagged." When I asked him if he thinks it could have been a seizure, he said he didn't know, but maybe. Case file number 1879, written by Chesh14. The tire was found. A desert miracle was profound. This happened about 25 years ago. Two friends, let's call them D and J, and I were moving across the country from Georgia to Arizona. We packed up everything we owned into 2 cars, put CB radios in them to keep in contact while driving, and headed across the country on Interstate 40. We stopped occasionally for breaks, switched drivers, etc., so we did not get overly tired. 2 days in, we were just about to cross the New Mexico-Arizona state line at about midnight. D and I were in the car in the lead, and J was driving behind us. Right before the state line, D and I see the headlights suddenly veer off the road. We called him up on the CB, and he said he was rattled, but okay. He did not know what happened, but something was wrong with his car. We get off at the next exit, double back, and find J. By that time, he had figured out he had a blowout. His left front tire was completely shredded. It was really just ribbons of rubber hanging off the rim. And of course, he did not have a spare. So, we unpacked some stuff from the first car, and the 3 of us drove off to find some truck stop or something where we could get a new tire. About 5 miles past the state line, we find this tiny little truck stop that just happens to have a garage with tire service, though the garage wasn't open at night. When the owner got in and heard what we needed, he grabbed a replacement tire, and we drove behind his truck out to where we had left the car. But when we got there, the tire was just flat. All 3 of us had seen it shredded just a few hours before. The guy from the garage just turned on his compressor and filled it up. He said it was weird that it had gone flat all of a sudden like that. He said the tire should be destroyed the way Jay described, that the car suddenly jerked to the side. But he also seemed completely unplussed. He was a very old guy who seemed to have seen a lot of weird stuff out there in the middle of the desert. The tire remained just fine for the rest of the trip. It did not have any problems until a few months later, when it developed a slow leak. Case file number 1880, written by Sarah Smashley. Dishes done and a slap under the sun. I questioned my sanity last Tuesday when this happened. I woke up and started my morning as I always do. Let the dogs out to do their business, pull on some shorts and start watering all my flowers. I walked out onto my small stone porch and audibly said to myself, "It's roomy out here without the table." The table is a 3 foot high by 2 feet wide by 3 feet long, high top tiled table that I keep on my porch in the summers to cook on the outside to help keep the house cool inside. I had thrown a large barbecue for Labor Day weekend 2 days prior, so my SO moved the table out onto the driveway next to the grill for more surface space. That evening when cleaning up, he moved the table into the garage and made a comment that he was going to put it back out when he wasn't so tired. While doing the dishes Tuesday after the weekend was over, I went to put the grill spatula back by the grill in the garage and didn't see the table anywhere. I remember glancing around and thinking, where did he put that damn thing? And cursing him for probably placing his tools on it again in the back corner somewhere. My garage is enormous, so it's not out of the realm of possibilities that I would miss it. I'm standing in my kitchen with my door wide open, so the dogs can come back inside when they're done laying their fertilizer, doing dishes again. This is when I heard the sound. I can only equate it to a metal bang sound, roughly 12 feet from me. I turn around to go and investigate and see if my dogs are alright. Both are lying on the floor asleep. I walked out onto the porch and lo and behold, the table is there, albeit placed in an odd spot precariously on the edge of the stone steps. I picked it up and moved it against the wall so I could walk through. I looked around, assuming my partner had stopped by on his way to one of his work locations and dropped the table off. He'll take stuff to work to fix sometimes because he has a big workshop there, but I don't see him anywhere. Not him, not his work truck, and the gate is still closed and padlocked shut. This will matter in a bit. I checked and the side door to the garage is still closed and locked. I'm stumped. I walk back inside and pick up my phone and call him to ask him where he's at. I don't see his work truck outside. He says he's at such and such at location 3 miles away. I explain the above and he says, I put the table on the porch before I left at 4:30 this morning. I know what you're all thinking. You just didn't see it. You were so preoccupied that you ignored it. No, not possible. Because I pruned some dead leaves from a potted plant and turned to audibly note that the table wasn't there. I then walked through the space where it later appeared. This also rules out that I was hallucinating. I wouldn't have been able to walk through that space towards a compost bucket if in my mind I was just imagining it not being there. This led me to my next rational thought. Someone was attempting to burglarize me and put it back. The problems that lie in this notion are abundant. I couldn't miss a person awkwardly holding and attempting to steal this heavy high-top table. As I walked around for 20 minutes watering flowers, they simply would not have had the time to scale my tall and locked front gate or fence with said table. I also live near a school on a narrow street and people were arriving. This person couldn't have gone unnoticed. The teachers would have called or shouted at me as they were directing morning traffic. Not to mention, navigating through my labyrinth of a courtyard silently, with said awkward table, and being unnoticed. Finally, the sound, it was weird. I literally have nothing to rationalize what the sound could or would have been. I'm at a loss. It was like it wasn't from this world. Case file number 1881. Written by Sloth Eating Toast, Archery and Son, puzzled by the cable guard's run. When I was 19, not too long ago, I was working on an archery range at a scout camp for the summer. Both the scouts and parents were on the firing line shooting the compound bows we used. I was in charge of the range, which included the responsibilities of safety, inventory, maintaining the bows, etc. While the scouts and their parents were firing, and I was walking up and down the line behind them, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a black plastic cable guard fall onto the ground and bounce in between a father and son firing their bows. A plastic cable guard is attached securely to a compound bow. It is wrapped around metal and at least 2 strings from the bow running through the cable guard. Without the cable guard, a compound bow would only be able to fire once or twice before breaking. And no compound bow that we had could hold more than 1 cable guard. When I saw the cable guard fall to the ground, I went over and picked it up. I asked the scout and his father to stop firing, so that it could replace the bow that had the guard fall off of it. However, both the bows still had their cable guards attached. Every single bow on the firing line had a cable guard. Every single bow in the equipment shed also had a cable guard. At the start of the summer, I had taken inventory of all the equipment on the range, and this cable guard was unaccounted for. as there is no way for a bow to hold a second cable guard on it. And I saw the cable guard fall to the ground. I am stumped on how this might have happened. Later in the day, I found the scout and his father that the guard had fallen between, asked them if they knew where it came from, but they were unaware. It was nothing creepy or serious, but I still wonder occasionally about this. Case notes file 1882, written by Good with My Soft Lips. A quiet, nighttime riot. My son's unseen ice cream diet. This happened about 4 years ago, and I'm still so confused by the events of that night. I had just put my then 8-year-old son to bed. He has autism. When I remembered the tooth fairy had duty to attend that night, so I sat in my room waiting for him to fall asleep. The apartment was completely quiet other than the dryer running, and I heard a weird little bell noise like you hear on a kitten collar or something. I thought maybe something had fallen off the dryer, but no. I peeked at the stairs that led up to my kids' rooms, and the baby gate was still up on the stairs. For reference, this baby gate was loud. Anytime we took it down or put it up, it would creak loudly. Also, you really couldn't avoid banging it all over the walls in the small passage of the stairs. Even though I could see the gate was still up, I would have seen if anyone had walked down the stairs, as my bedroom door directly faces the bottom of the stairs, except off to the side. I decided I should go up and check on them anyway. Check my daughter's room, she's fine in bed sleeping. Check my son's room, and he's not there. On his bed is a carton of ice cream that is still very cold and fresh, not melted at all. The first thing I'm thinking is, he must have heard me coming and is hiding, because he thinks he's going to get in trouble for taking the ice cream. So I start calling for him. I check his closet thinking he is for sure in there. And when I don't see him, my heart starts racing. I check the bathroom, not there. I start running down the stairs, and I can see in the living room window, a neighbor walked him back to our apartment, which retrospectively thought, I don't know how they knew which apartment, because my son did not, and still doesn't have the speaking skills to be able to give that information. I ran out and grabbed him, no pants and all, and just began to weep in relief. I still cannot figure it out that night. It haunts me. There should have been no way I would have missed him walking down the stairs, especially with the loud gate and with our also very loud freezer. I should have heard him getting into the ice cream as well. The ice cream was so fresh looking, sat on his bed. I tried to ask him about it, but he's unable to tell me much. Case file number 1883, written by Healthy Will 139. Crane so tall, gone in a squall. A morning drive that baffles us all. A few months ago, May 2024, my family and I were driving home from a weekend out of town when something strange happened that neither one of us can explain. We've thought about it every day since. My husband was driving, my toddlers were in the middle row, facing forward car seats, and I was up front with my husband. It was a Monday morning around rush hour, and we were driving from Hilton Head back to Savannah. The traffic was a little thick, as you'd expect at this time, but it was a typical morning. As we were getting close to home, we pointed out to the kids that we could see part of the Savannah skyline and the big Talmadge Bridge. I remarked to my husband that it was strange that Waze said we still had 23 minutes to get to our home, because that seemed longer than it should have. I have driven the route many times, and at that point with typical morning traffic, it should only take about 10 to 12 minutes from where we were. Didn't think much of it. I just thought it was weird and chalked it up to traffic. A minute or two later, as we're getting closer to the bridge, there was a stretch of construction and roadwork going on both sides of the road, but primarily happening directly off the right lane. We slowed down by about 5 to 10 miles per hour. But the construction did not impede the flow of traffic by any means. There were 3 cranes ahead of us. They were the kind of cranes that are controlled from the bottom. I believe they are called crawlers. One of them was much bigger than the other 2. It was so big that I stopped mid-conversation with my husband to point it out to the girls. Wow, girls, look at the big crane. to which they both responded, "Wow," or something like that. I remember them excitedly acknowledged that they saw it. I finished the sentence that I had been in the middle of to my husband, and then I directed my attention to the side mirror to get another eye shot of the crane. It wasn't there. My eyes immediately darted to the rearview mirror to see if I could see it there, and I noticed my husband looking a little confused also. "Where did it go?" I said, sort of panicky. I completely turned my body around to look out all of the windows, and it just wasn't there. I don't remember if the other two were there or not, but I know for a fact that the big one that we should have been passing was not. My husband, who is a very logical and composed individual, seemed equally as puzzled and said, "I don't see it. It should be right there. We should have passed it." I continued to stare through the side mirror as we drove over the bridge and into town. The rest of the drive was quiet, as I assumed we were both attempting to process what had just happened. That stretch of highway is flat, marshy, coastal plain area. There are no tall trees or buildings around where our view of the crane would have been to be obstructed by it. There is also no way that the crane could have been lowered to an almost flat position in the short span of time, especially without any of us witnessing it. There isn't a day that goes by that this doesn't get brought up between us. We've been considering every possibility imaginable, and we just can't explain it. Part of me wonders if noticing the time versus distance on Waze a few minutes earlier is also related, but that could have just been a coincidence. I kicked myself later for not thinking to check the time when we got home. I feel like we question everything now. Whatever happened has left an impression on both of us. It's not necessarily an unsettling feeling, but just kind of strange. Anywho, it weighs heavy on my curious mind every day. I figured I'd put it out there and see if anyone has ever experienced anything similar. Case file number 1884, written by Enthusiastic Sinner, The Hillside House's Night, a tale that's not quite right. In 1989, a friend bought a small house on a large piece of land in the hills of Pennsylvania, and asked me and another friend to house sit for a week. The house only had 4 rooms, and we only moved into couch and some boxes at this point. We were sitting around talking and listening to music late one night when we heard scratching at the door. I opened the door and a little Jack Russell walked in like he owned the place. The dog didn't look like he was wandering around the hills. He was well groomed and well fed, but he didn't have a collar. We have no idea where he could have come from because there wasn't another house around for miles. We went back to listening to music and talking while the dog enjoyed a belly rub. Then the dog jumped up and ran towards the bedroom barking. He slid into a stop in the doorway and his fur was sticking straight up. He was looking up as if he was looking at someone and growling. We looked in the bedroom but didn't see anything. I tried to get the dog to come back and lay down, but he was focused on something we couldn't see. He started slowly walking backward out of the room as he was snarling and growling. This freaked us out a little, so we decided to step out and get some fresh air. I tried to get the dog to come with us, but he was still focused on something and growling. We stayed in the front yard because there was no light anywhere, other than from the windows of the house, and we couldn't see very well. We heard the dog bark one more time, really loud and short. It was different from the way he had barked earlier. It was like he was startled. We went back into the house to see if the dog calmed down, but the dog was gone. We looked around everywhere for the rest of the night and never found the dog again. All the windows were locked and the house only had one door that me and my friend were standing near the whole time. This happened over 30 years ago, and it still bothers me today. I'm still friends with the guy I was with that night, and we still talk about it sometimes and try to figure out what could have happened, but we never can. Case file number 1885, written by CGC X3, a line of lights with houses that appeared overnight. So, there's a city about 45 minutes from mine. Until this past month, we went to the city about 5 or 6 times a year for the last 15 years. We always go there and back on the same road. I started going to college in the city this semester, so I've been to the city about 20 times in the last month. Always on the same road, 2 times a day, 4 times a week. All that to say, Tuesday, when I was driving back from school, I saw a neighborhood off to my right. It's not tucked back in a tree line or anything, and it's not just 1 or 2 houses. It's a line of maybe 15 to 20 cookie-cutter style houses in a straight line perpendicular to the main road. The houses are all facing me as I drive home. The first one is maybe 20 to 30 feet from the road. There's cars at all the houses. The houses don't look super new, but they're not old either. I can tell it's on an old pasture land, so there's no trees. And there's no sign advertising a new neighborhood. I have never seen this neighborhood before. When I drove by it Tuesday, I was like, what the crap? Where did that come from? I drove by this morning and I saw the neighborhood and got a sense of unease. Like I'm seeing something that shouldn't be there. I've been racking my brain trying to remember if this neighborhood was there before this week. But I can say with certainty I've never seen it before. Case file number 1886, written by Dart Savty 23. The Jeep's final straw, a miraculous reset that left me in awe. This happened a couple years ago, and I think about it non-stop. My ex-brother-in-law was getting married on Mackinac Island, so we all had to drive out. My ex-wife, son, and mother-in-law left a day before me. I had to work for a few hours and take dogs to the kennel before I started the 6+ hour drive. On the way back from the wedding, something happened, which I still can't figure out and replay it in my head continuously. I was driving my 2014 Jeep Wrangler and I went to reach for something to drink on the passenger seat. The bottle rolled away a little, so I reached further, which caused me to pull the wheel to the side. I realized I was close to the side of the road and went to correct it. But between overcorrecting, speed, 80+ in the middle of a nowhere road, and it being a Jeep, I lost control and flipped it. I remember rolling over a couple times and Jeep going into the woods on the side of the road. I can remember the sound of the wood exploding off the small pine trees and the smell of the earth when I finally stopped moving. For a moment, I registered I was in terrible pain, but then it went away. I remember laying in the wreckage, realizing I was going to die and never see my son again. For a few seconds, I panicked about this and tried to move, but couldn't. After a few moments, a sense of calm came over me, and I realized he would be okay, and that everything was going to be okay, and I was okay with dying. Then suddenly, it was like it never happened, and I was back in the Jeep, and I severed but corrected okay, and I pulled over to the side of the road. I remember feeling like I was having a panic attack, white as a ghost and covered in sweat. I got back in the Jeep and drove for a bit. Once I got to the nearest little town outside the national park, I stopped and drank a bunch of coffee. After a bit, I finished the drive home. I told my ex-wife about it and she thought I was teasing her. Told my best friend and he thinks I must have fallen asleep while driving and dreamed about it. I know it happened. I can still feel the feeling of weightlessness as the Jeep was rolling, the deafening sound of metal and trees colliding, and the moment of panic and the feeling of acceptance shortly after. Case file number 1887, written by Additional Spread 5892. The green-fingered gold left me cold. About a year ago, I experienced something that still puzzles me to this day. 5 years ago, I got this fake gold ring with a green gem from a flea market while my sisters were on vacation. It wasn't the greatest quality as it turned my finger green, but I wore it every day religiously for 3 years, and it was the only ring I ever wore. I also never took it off. Not when I slept or showered, hence the green finger. Not when I washed my hands, it got washed as well. And it never fell off because it fit snug. I was at work one day about 2 years ago, and right before I went to get my first client of the day, I looked down and noticed it was gone from my finger. I couldn't fathom where it was or how it fell off, or that I had somehow taken it off and set it down somewhere for some reason. I hadn't been to the restroom, hadn't been in my purse, which I searched. I had an office to myself and no one else had been in, and the door was closed. I searched my entire desk, the chair, my shoes, and I looked everywhere. I had only been at work for an hour, and I knew I had it when I arrived with it because I was always running my fingers on it. I assumed I would find it throughout the day. I even went to the staff lounge and searched there despite not having been there that day. I checked lost and found, nothing. Fast forward a year, last year. I had a different job, a new car, and lived alone. I clean and vacuum regularly, and I'd guessed the weekend before. So I took my couch cushions apart and cleaned it very recently. I came home from work and took my shoes off and went to the bathroom. When I came back, I immediately noticed something in the center on my middle couch cushion. Again, I live alone. I walk up and legit heard myself scream. It was the ring. The one I lost at my old job over a year ago. Sitting where I sit every day, not buried in the couch, but on the top of the cushion. I was so confused I called my sister. I am wearing it now. I still haven't taken it off since then, and haven't had any experience like that since. I tried to think maybe it was stuck in what I was wearing, but my trousers had no pockets, and were only a few months old. I've cleaned everywhere in that apartment, and have never once seen it. It's like it just fell out of the sky. Case file number 1888, written by Nazrian. 1 minute turned 1 second. This morning, I was sitting in my living room, looking outside to see what my dad was doing. The front door has glass panels, so I can clearly see if anyone passes by or is at the front of the house. I watched as my dad, who had just returned from cutting grass for his sheep and goats, walked to the side of the house where I could no longer see him. The strange part is, as soon as he disappeared from view, he immediately walked in through the back door. I was so confused. I glanced again through the front door, knowing it usually takes 1 to 2 minutes to walk from the front of the house to the back. Given my dad's usual pace, it's impossible that he could have covered that distance so quickly without running, and even if he had, he would have been out of breath. Yet he walked in perfectly normal, calm, and unhurried. It left me wondering, did he somehow pass through a portal or something? Case file number 1889, written by To the Valley Below. Unexpected Brew and the Coffee Shop Out of the Blue. A few weeks ago, I was visiting a major Canadian city for a weekend concert. I was sharing a hotel room with my boyfriend and 2 friends, a couple. During our first morning in the room, while I was showering and getting ready for the day, the couple went downstairs to get coffee for everyone. They asked if I wanted one, and I declined, as I wanted to eat something first. They returned with 3 coffees and some breakfast buns about a half hour later. I had a sip of my boyfriend's coffee and immediately realized my mistake as it was delicious. I quickly finished getting ready and asked which coffee shop they'd gone to. The name was quite unique and was actually a small kiosk located in the lower level of the food court, which was connected to the hotel we were staying in. I estimate the amount of time that elapsed from the moment they left the room to get coffee, and when I left to get coffee, it was no more than 45 minutes. I arrived at the coffee shop to find it closed. Lights off, doors locked, no one there. The hours sign was visibly posted from Monday, Friday only, but it was Saturday. I was confused as this was definitely the shop they'd just been to, minutes before. I asked a hotel staff member in the lobby if there was another coffee shop with the same name close by, and they said no, it wasn't a chain. I bought a coffee from the hotel restaurant instead and returned to the room. After verifying with the couple that this was in fact the same coffee shop they'd just been to, I was so confused that I made them go with me to see it in person and verify it was closed. They did, same one. On Monday, while we were leaving the hotel with our luggage in hand, I decided to pop by the coffee kiosk again. I asked one of the staff members if they had been open on Saturday morning. He said no, they are never open on weekends. I asked if there was any chance that a manager or owner decided to open the shop briefly because of the concert and potential for extra business from the hotel that day. He said no, not a chance. I returned home and phoned the coffee shop and asked to speak to the manager. They again stated definitively that they are not and are never open on Saturdays. It became a running joke with our friends all weekend that they'd slip into a parallel dimension, and although we had a few laughs about it, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. Question suivante 1878. Everything's fine until a woman was frozen in time. Now, I don't believe this could be a seizure or any sort of medical condition, because no medical condition I know of can accelerate the pace of one's movements like that, to the extent that they skipped frames. Right in front of your eyes, and quite standard because there was the employee there too, the cashier who saw it all. So it's good that you don't feel crazy. Before you said that there was some accelerated skipping of frames, I figured, okay, this is probably one of those organic pranks that they pull. People will just go out in anywhere in the world, anywhere in society, and have a group of people, sometimes alone, and they'll just act in a certain bizarre way, like suddenly stopping, pretending to be motionless. But you can't suddenly start to prank people by skipping frames. How would you do that? Unless you're as fast as Bruce Lee, but I'm guessing she wasn't. Probably a processing error in the server, the local cluster. That would be my guess. And if that's the case, then if you do see footage from the security cameras, then those usually record at very low frame rates. So I don't think you get much information from it, besides not really seeing the movements in the camera. Question suivante 1879. The tire was found. A desert miracle that was profound. So I want to say that this was multiverse related. In that one universe you really did have this tire that was completely eviscerated, and in the originating universe it was just a flat, lost air. Significant difference, but nothing that can't be explained by different permutations of reality. I mean, most things can be explained that way, really, if you think about it. Now time for the joke of the day. What do you call an old snowman? A jug of water. Melted away. Poor Jack Frost. Question suivante 1880. Dishes done and a slap under the sun. I think the noise was simply the restoration of the table that was out of phase or de-rendered completely, but it had to be brought back, and I guess brought back quickly enough that it made a loud sound. Could even be a sonic boom from the air displacement. The air has to get out of the way if an object is de-rendered. I mentioned that before, but maybe there's some mechanism that the servers are able to employ to prevent the sound from either registering in our minds or simply not rippling out from the quick expansion of air in the surrounding area when an object is re-rendered in. Something like that. Maybe even the air itself re-renders with it. But then it would be a pocket of void which the air should go and rush in to fill if it is de-rendered. So I'm not sure how that works exactly. But I guess it's all mass, so in one way or another, the sound usually doesn't play. I'm guessing, unless they're in a rush to restore it. And in this case, that's what happened. Although, it would still have to be muted, because a sonic boom that close to glass would have shattered windows. Question suivante 1881. Archery in the sun. Puzzled by the cable guard's run. Getting a lot of duplication events these days. And it is the most common glitch, disappearance or duplication. I think duplication has seen an uptick in the last year and a half. Since when I started reading these stories, they weren't very frequent. In fact, I remember it probably went months until I read a duplication event when I started this. But I had seen tons of de-rendered objects, disappearing object phenomena. I remember speaking about that term way back when, well before any duplication event. Before the idea of stealing objects from different universes even came into play. But yeah, that's what happened, I think. In the grand multiverse ocean, one just zipped over here, just washed ashore like you see objects near the beach all the time. Got caught in the current, and came here. Now time for the joke of the day. My ex-wife still misses me. But her aim is getting better. You need to run, boy, run. Question suivante 1882. A quiet, nighttime riot. My son's unseen ice cream diet. Alright, there's some elements here that do stump me. I don't have a clear explanation for. The ice cream appearing, well, you could say that's multiverse duplication, but that's only one part of the puzzle. Okay, so did your son de-render, go to a different universe, come back, but appeared outside the home, where he somehow communicated where he lived to this stranger, the neighbor? Seems unlikely. All that doesn't really fit together. Was it the Tooth Fairy that came to pay a visit? Doubt it. But hey, it's as good an explanation as I can give on this one. Question sur file 1883. Crane so tall, gone in a squall. A morning drive that baffles us all. Was the Waze device? Was that the clue that you were in a different universe? You say you didn't check the time afterwards, and I guess that would be the secondary clue that would have sealed this. So what I think happened is you were temporarily in a different universe with your whole family, the whole car was there, maybe related to a space-time portal that moved you over. And in this different version of reality, you saw these great cranes that when you ported back home were not there. But if you had checked the Waze when that happened, which is unclear when, it's all seamless, the time to get home would probably have been correct. In this other universe, there just was more traffic, which actually makes sense given there's an extra crane, more construction going on, maybe more buildings, more apartment complexes being made to facilitate providing for all the extra people that are contributing to the extra traffic. Fits pretty well there. Now time for the joke of the day. Just so everyone is clear, I'm going to put on my glasses. Now everyone is clear. Question sur file 1884. The Hillside House's Night. A tale that's not quite right. Actually, I believe that this was a spirit of the Jack Russell. Mainly because you mentioned that there isn't really any place where this dog could have come from, other than already having been there. It was able to bark at other spirits in that home that were only visible to it. But it is a curious question to ask. Why does sometimes a spirit manifest corporeally? Or at least enough to be visible? And the ultimate question always is, in regards to spirit, if they can pass through matter, why don't they get dragged right to the center of the earth? If they're still affected by gravity. If not, they would just float away, because the earth is moving. So spirits are somehow bound by gravity of the earth, but also able to resist falling through the mass of the earth itself, which is definitely a plot hole, you could say. It's an anomaly that isn't fully explained. Maybe it's not true. Maybe ghosts cannot pass through solid matter, or it only happens in certain rare circumstances that are not in their control. Question sur file 1885. A line of lights with houses that appeared overnight. Okay, so I'm assuming that you check Google Maps to confirm that this new neighborhood is indeed there, and assuming that's the case, and it's not going away, then this would be evidence of quantum immortality. Although in this case, this would be a massive difference. An entire neighborhood in one area where it isn't in the other universe, that's a big difference. You must have zipped really far away to a different universe very far away, which I think means that you died in a lot of different universes. Whatever got you was prolific, but not enough to completely invalidate your existence because there's just so many copies of universes out there, and of yous out there, which is a comforting thought, in my view. Question sur file 1886. The Jeep's final straw. A miraculous reset that left me in awe. And another quantum immortality event, but this one much more visceral, descriptive, gory. I think that'd be one of the worst things about it. If you die in a way that you remember. Why people remember, some people do, some people don't. Unclear. But for you, the memory is crystal clear, crystallized into your mind. I'm sure you'll never forget that. And it really is sorrowful to experience that kind of melancholy. To be there dying, thinking about your son, and then just accepting your fate. Ugh. Brutal. Truly brutal. But at least it's not the end of the game. You get not a reset, but just a continuation in a different version of reality. I think quantum immortality is my favorite glitch per se, or just feature of the universe, the multiverse, that we just have more than 9 lives. We have quadrillions of quadrillions to the times, 64 exponent of variations. Now time for the joke of the day. My girlfriend has one eye and one leg. Her name is Eileen. Eileen, get it? Oh my god. These jokes are so good and so terrible. Question file 1887. The green-fingered gold that left me cold. Yeah, I would not trust a ring that turned my finger green. What are you absorbing into your body? Like heavy metal poisoning and you become the Green Lantern that way? Probably not. That would be acceptable, but that's not what's going on, I think. So, probably don't keep wearing that, even though it returned. Keep it as a keepsake. Evidence of a strange universe. Just put it in a display case instead. I would give that advice. Question file 1888. 1 minute, turn 1 second. Well, I do believe, and there have been stories where people do experience space-time portals, not in cars, but just walking about. One was a sidewalk experience where a person took 1 step and was literally just back inside eating dinner. So that was literally space-time. It affected time as well. But it could just affect space. In this case, your dad probably experienced something weird, kind of like a frame cut, where he was just ahead where he was supposed to be. Most people will just attribute that to an absent mind. Maybe he was thinking about something, and you know how sometimes you're just walking along or driving and you're just home suddenly and you don't have any memories of, it's like your body was on autopilot. That is a real phenomenon, not a glitch. So people will probably just explain these unseemly transportation events from portals as that, if they even notice it at all. Question file 1889. Unexpected brew and the coffee shop out of the blue. Now I want to say multiverse site, but it's full multiverse transportation because the coffee came along. It really was from their shop. The question then though, because these are not permanent, they restore themselves. So did the coffee mug or container just disappear after? This could relate to multiverse transportation, duplication, derender, etc. So objects derender because they weren't from that original universe. They just found themselves here and eventually that is corrected, which is why they disappear. So not a sign of an unstable universe, but just a corrective universe. But then I ask myself, does the coffee itself derender? So if they find it quickly enough and they fix the issue, do they take the coffee that's already in your stomach and zip it back to the other side? How would that feel? There would be a cavity in your gut. It would like implode. Obviously that doesn't happen, so if they don't take the coffee, those molecules don't belong here. Maybe they just take it after it exits your body. It reminds me of the idea in Star Trek where they can just, they have matter energy transports. What if they don't even need bathrooms? They just zip out their waste before they even have to use it. Just port it out. That would be a far cleaner approach, yes. Now time for the joke of the day. My doctor told me that I was going deaf. The news was hard to hear. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony, signing off.